almost didn't go. My brother's engagement party was being held at one of those expensive venues designed to quietly remind you who mattered and who didn't. Crystal lights hanging overhead, champagne towers glowing, and guests dressed like success was a costume they all wore proudly. I stood in front of the mirror longer than I should have, fixing a simple outfit I knew would invite comments, because I didn't want attention, I didn't want drama, I just wanted to show up, congratulate him, and leave quietly. But the moment I walked in, I knew that was never going to happen. I felt the sideways looks immediately, the whispers that stopped when I passed. My parents barely nodded at me before turning back to guests they clearly admired more, and my brother barely acknowledged me at all, too busy enjoying praise for his engagement and his so-called successful life. I took my seat quietly, just like I always had. Then the jokes began. Someone casually asked what I was doing these days, and before I could answer, my mother laughed and said I was still figuring life out. A cousin added that some people were born ambitious, while others were comfortable being average, and the table laughed. My brother's fiancée smiled awkwardly, unsure whether to laugh or look away. I kept my expression calm because I learned years ago that reacting only gave them what they wanted, but my brother wasn't done. During a toast, glass raised high, he proudly talked about his career, his company, and how lucky he was to work for real leadership, then glanced at me and added that not everyone in the family had figured life out yet. Some people were still floating between ideas, and the laughter grew louder. Then he said it, the line that made the table go quiet for half a second. At least now I don't have to worry about ending up like some people in this family. And in that silence, something finally clicked. They weren't teasing. They were enjoying it. Enjoying putting me back into the role they'd given me years ago. The disappointment. The one who never measured up. I took a slow sip of my drink. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. Because what none of them knew was that every career they admired, every paycheck they depended on, every promotion they bragged about came from something I built. The company they praised existed because of me. I hadn't planned to say anything that night, truly I hadn't, but as my brother smiled like a man who thought he'd won, I realized if I stayed silent now, I'd be silent forever, and I was done with that. The laughter continued, but inside me there was no anger, only clarity. I watched my brother soak in attention, confident only because he believed he stood above me, while my parents nodded proudly, convinced every cruel word was justified. They believed silence meant weakness. I stood up. The scrape of my chair cut through the noise, conversation slowed, and I cleared my throat calmly. "I just want to say something quickly," I said. That alone made people uneasy. "I'm genuinely happy for my brother," I continued. "An engagement is a big milestone, stability, growth, responsibility, all things we've talked about a lot tonight." A few nervous laughs followed. "But there's something everyone here should know," I said, turning slightly so the whole table could see me, especially those who work hard every day to support the company that provides so much for this family. My father frowned. My brother shifted. "The company everyone keeps talking about," I said evenly, "the one paying the mortgages, funding the vacations, and supporting the lifestyle you're proud of, belongs to me." The silence was instant. My mother's face drained of color, my father stared like he couldn't process the words, and my brother laughed once, sharp and forced, saying it wasn't funny. "I'm not joking," I replied calmly. "I founded it 10 years ago, and I stayed behind the scenes because I wanted it to succeed on its own without family influence." Someone whispered my name. A glass shook against the table. "You work there," my brother said slowly. "You don't own it." "I work there." I nodded because an owner should understand every part of their business, including the department you manage. My father stood halfway, then sat back down, his hands shaking. "You let us believe," my mother started. "I let you believe whatever you wanted," I said quietly, because no matter what I did, it was never enough. So I stopped explaining. My brother's confusion turned into fear. "So all this time you could have corrected us," he said. "I could have," I replied, "but I wanted to see how you treated me when you thought I had nothing to offer." No one laughed now. I didn't come here to embarrass anyone, I continued, but mocking someone you don't understand is dangerous, especially when your entire sense of security depends on them. I picked up my coat and said, "Enjoy the party and congratulations," again. As I walked toward the exit, the room stayed frozen, not because I shouted or threatened, but because in one calm moment, the roles they had assigned me for years collapsed. My heels echoed against the polished floor as every eye followed me. My parents stood silent, pride colliding with reality, and my brother looked pale, shock finally replacing arrogance, realizing that every step he had taken in his career was inside the company I built. At the doorway, I paused and said for years I was dismissed, belittled, compared. You never saw what I was building quietly and consistently, and tonight you're seeing the truth you never wanted to acknowledge. My parents tried to speak, but I shook my head and said your opinions never defined me before and they won't now. The room fell silent again, some guests stunned, others quietly admiring the control I carried, my brother's pride crumbling. My parents,